God bless you. God bless you. What's happening? What's good? What's good? It's your main man, Coach Will, Bill, William, Will, you name it, man of a million names. Look, in my life now, I'm hoping the names are more beneficial, right? Good names now, right? But I really love to be called servant of Christ. And the only way you're going to get that name is, man, work at it. Get your work in. So, look, we had an awesome suggestion from one of our leaders, Sister Deanna. She said, hey, look, for our fast in February, January, since we read Proverbs, why not read Ecclesiastes, right? So it's King Solomon. We read it's the bookend, she said, and I agree. I was asking God, I said, hey God, what are we gonna read? What am I gonna read in February in January doing my fast? And he didn't give me nothing. So Deanna came out with that, and it makes a lot of sense. So here we are, Ecclesiastes, and right now I'm just gonna read the introduction to Ecclesiastes. If you're like me, and a lot of times you read the scripture, especially the Old Testament, but you read the scripture and you really can't imagine the background. The setting, we try to put it in sense and we visualize it with the brain that we got, not really able to fully understand all the context. So I'm just going to read a little bit of the background based on what this MacArthur Study Bible says. And then we're going to jump into Ecclesiastes chapter 1, okay? So the English title of Ecclesiastes come from the Greek and Latin translations of Solomon's book. The LXX. XX is 20. What's the L? Use the Greek term Ecclesiastes for its title, meaning preacher, derived from the word ecclesiasia, translated assembly or congregation in the New Testament. Both the Greek and Latin versions derive their titles from the Hebrew title of Koheleth, which means one who calls or gathers the people. It refers to one who addresses the assembly, hence the preacher. All right, gotcha, makes sense. So let's talk about the author and the date. The autobiographical profile of the book's writer unmistakably points to King Solomon. Evidence abounds, such as 1, the title fits Solomon. 2, son of David, king in Jerusalem. And he says king over Israel and Jerusalem. And it goes on to say the author's moral odyssey over Solomon's life. So it's pretty evident that this is King Solomon who wrote this. Says once Solomon is accepted as the author, the date and occasion becomes clear. Solomon was writing this probably in his latter years, no later than 931 BC. So that would be about 1,000 years before Jesus, right? Primarily to warn young people of his kingdom without omitting others. He warned them to avoid walking through life on the path of human wisdom. He exhorted them to live by the revealed wisdom of God. Remember, this was the wisest man on the planet, right? So now he's saying, yo, don't go on wisdom, man. Look, let God run this, all right? So, all right, so let's talk about background and setting a little bit more. Solomon's reputation for possessing extraordinary wisdom fits the Ecclesiastes profile. David recognized his son's wisdom. Right. David was King Solomon's dad. Before God gave Solomon an additional measure, before he gave him an additional measure, after he received a wise and discerning mind from the Lord, Solomon gained renown for being exceedingly wise by rendering insightful decisions, a reputation that attracted all the kings of the earth to his courts. In addition, he composed songs and proverbs, right? Activity benefiting only the blessed of sages. Solomon's wisdom, like Job's wealth, surpassed the wisdom of the people of the East. The book is applicable to all who would listen and benefit, not so much for Solomon's experiences, but from the principles he drew as a result. Its aim is to answer some of life's most challenging questions, particularly where they seem contrary to Solomon's expectations. This is interesting, fam. This is why this is going to be a great read. This has led some unwisely to take the view that Ecclesiastes is a book of skepticism. Skepticism. All right, well, I raise my hand. But in spite of amazingly unwise behavior and thinking, Solomon never let go of his faith in God. All right, let's talk about historical and theological themes. As is true with most biblical wisdom literature, little historical narrative occurs in Ecclesiastes. Little historical narrative occurs in Ecclesiastes. Apart from Solomon's own personal pilgrimage, the kingly sage studied life with high expectations, but repeatedly bemoaned its shortcomings, which he acknowledged were due to the curse. Curse of what? We'll read and find out. That's awesome. The curse of sin. Ecclesiastes represents the painful autobiography of Solomon, who, for much of his life, squandered God's blessings on his own personal pleasure rather than God's glory. Listen to that. Listen to that. God loved him so much, gave him so much wisdom and all that, and he went and pursued all his own craziness, right? Our sin nature. He wrote to warn subsequent generations not to make the same tragic error in much the same manner as Paul wrote to the Corinthians. The Hebrew word translated vanity, vanities, and vain life expresses the futile attempt to be satisfied. This is so important, fam. This is so important. Oh man, I just had a sip of I bought my wife this hydrogen bottle, right, for Christmas, and then I had to get my own. So I just had my first sip. That's something strange in my mouth. Apart from God, the word is used 38 times, expressing the many thoughts, many things hard to understand about life. All earthly goals and ambitions, when pursued as ends in themselves, produce only emptiness. Can I reread that? All earthly goals and ambitions, when pursued as ends in themselves, produce only emptiness. Paul was probably echoing Solomon's dissatisfaction when he wrote, the creation was subject to futility. Solomon's experience with the effects of the curse, sin, led him to view life as chasing after the wind. That's what we do when we pursue life's call with all our heart. Solomon asked, what does a man gain by all toil? A question he repeated again and again. The wise king gave over a considerable portion of the book to addressing this dilemma. The impossibility of discovering both the inner workings of God's creation and the personal providence of God in Solomon's life was deeply troubling to the king, as it was to Job. But the reality of judgment for all, despite many unknowns, emerged as the great uncertainty. In light of this judgment by God, the only fulfilled life is one lived in proper recognition of God and service to Him. Any other kind of life is frustrating and pointless. A proper balance of the prominent enjoy life theme with that of divine judgment tethers the reading to Solomon's God with the short cord of faith. For a time, Solomon suffered from the imbalance of trying to enjoy life without regard for the fear of Yahweh's judgment, holding him on the path of obedience. Listen to that, fam. In the end, he came to grasp the importance of obedience. Obedience to who? Obedience to Christ, Yahweh, Jehovah, Yeshua, the Jesus. The tragic results of Solomon's personal experience, coupled with the insight of extraordinary wisdom, make Ecclesiastes a book from which all believers can be warned and grow in their faith. This book shows that if one perceives each day of existence, labor, and basic provision as a gift from God and accepts whatever God gives, then that person lives an abundant life. There it is. That's it, fam. However, one who looks to be satisfied apart from God will live a life with futility regardless of his or her accumulations. And that's it. That's what we're going to read about. This is what Ecclesiastes is going to tell us. All right, I gave you the key at the beginning. Bless you. Stick around, hang around. I'm going to read Ecclesiastes, start chapter 1. There's other persons, Mark Party's doing it. Deanna's doing it. Mark is doing it. So there's some other of us who's doing it. So if you're not crazy about my voice, then you can check out their voice. But what's important is that you should share this link on your social media. Why? Not for my glory, not for Deanna's or nobody else's, but for God's glory, so other people can get His word. People that you don't even know are starving and hungry, broken and hurting. They starving and hungry, broken and hurting. And you can send his word out there, all four corners of the earth. We're commissioned. This is our great commission to do as much, right? Bless you. Love you. Bendiga. Baruch. Shalom. Peace.